We are learning new details about what led a California couple to massacre 14 people during a holiday party last week. The details come as the U.S. steps up its fight against ISIL in the Middle East, and CCTV's Jessica Stone is following developments. She's here on the set with us right now. New tactics against ISIL, huh?
Yeah, it looks that way. Unlike the previous American president, as you know, Mike, this one is much more interested in incremental, internationally backed steps to fight ISIL before its terror takes root in the United States. And at the same time, we heard the U.S. Defense Secretary Wednesday suggest that the fight that's concentrated now in Syria and Iraq should spread to Libya as well.
The Paris terror attacks and the mass shooting in San Bernardino, California have brought a new consensus to government officials in Washington, D.C. Defeat ISIL in its territory or risk more widespread terror in the United States.
Whenever a terrorist group finds safe haven somewhere from which to plot against the United States, that's a danger to the United States. We've been pursuing such groups since 9/11 and actually before, and we have to do that with respect to ISIL.
Senior U.S. military officials say they're pursuing a more aggressive tact with the terror group now, taking multiple new approaches to President Barack Obama's desk. All, they say, have been approved. One of them, precise and stepped-up strikes on one of ISIL's main sources of revenue, oil. Another, adding more local and U.S. forces to direct those strikes. The vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says 40% of the U.S. aircraft that take off with bombs are returning with them.
We have actually trained Syrian Arabs, members of the new Syrian forces, as well as our Iraqi partners, to provide the kind of precision target identification that's necessary.
U.S. troops will then examine and evaluate those targets. ISIL's capital city in Syria, Raqqa, will also be a key focus for at least 200 additional American special forces heading to the region.
That is one of the reasons that we have advocated and gotten authorities to put special ops forces into Syria to build that depth of intelligence to understand which forces are available to put increasing pressure and a whole force into Raqqa.
The FBI says it now sees ISIL inspiration in last week's San Bernardino massacre, but its director told a Senate hearing Wednesday the pair had been radicalized for at least 2 years beforehand. That would mean the U.S. government failed to recognize Tashfeen Malik's tendencies when she came to the U.S. on a fiancé visa to marry Syed Farouk.
Do you agree with me that if it was arranged by a terrorist operative of organization, that is a game changer?
It would be a very, very important thing to know. That's why we're working so hard to understand it.
And the FBI still won't say if the San Bernardino shooters used encrypted communication, but the director acknowledges it was a factor in a Texas shooting back in May. In fact, he says the gunman in that case exchanged more than 100 messages with a suspected terrorist overseas. And Mike, that made all of them inaccessible to law enforcement.
And the U.S. Attorney General now telling the Europeans they're concerned about, they want laws to make it, they say that the laws are hard on Americans in investigating terrorism.
Yeah, she was actually in London on Wednesday and said the safe harbor agreement that has been struck down by the European court, it is not helping in U.S. terror investigations. It used to be easier under that agreement to exchange information, a free flow of information across the Atlantic. She really came down hard on the Europeans for that, saying you're making it harder.
That's so interesting and so complex, but thank you, Jessica.